That's running. Everything's running. All right, perfect. All right. Um, just pay attention to my phone too, in case he hits me up. If he comes in, hopefully not. All right. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. First and foremost, we at Live from 631 want to thank everyone who's here with us today and is taking that first and necessary step into experiencing more of what the world has to offer, indulge in different cultures, and enhance their travel experience by taking this here, the travel planning course. Live from 631 is a creative agency who was formerly created in 2023, and we empower the Wanderlust community by providing sustainable solutions, fostering economic growth, and enhancing the travel experience for both travelers but also tourism professionals. So, we're here catering to, our target audience, the people who want to travel and experience more of the world. We want to provide resources, we want to provide solutions, education, and inspiration to specifically that Wanderlust community. Some of you know that word, some of you may not. So let's just hone in on that one specific word that means so much to us here, and that's simply people who have a strong desire to travel. And we assume this is why you're here with us today, to learn and learn about what we are going to show you is mastering the 5 essential steps to getting out there and traveling more. The world is such a big place, obviously, as we know, and we believe that it can leave such a big impact on you the same way that you can leave an impact on it. So, for those of you who have a strong desire to travel, we appreciate you taking that first and necessary step. But before we get into mastering the 5 essential steps needed to start traveling, I first want to tell you a story. And the story is about a kid who, growing up, thought he didn't have the options or the possibility to travel. Honestly, it was never a thought on his mind. And the only time he heard about traveling was when he heard about what his friends or other classmates did during spring break or throughout the school year. And he would always hear about the trips that they went on, but he never thought that this was obtainable for himself. And also, he never wanted to put that financial burden on his mother because growing up, he just didn't have the finances to do so. And all throughout his life, besides when he was moving from state to state, that was the only time he traveled. And it wasn't because he wasn't able to. It was more so a mind state and a perspective. His mindset wasn't in the right place. This was until his older brother decided himself that he was going to start traveling. So while this kid grew up and he gets to college, and then one summer his brother says, you know what, I'm going to go travel. And his brother traveled abroad. And throughout this entire time, he's constantly sending photos and telling him stories about what he's experiencing on his trip. And this went on for an entire summer of him constantly getting stories and photos of what he was experiencing out there. So then his older brother comes back and he tells him, listen, next year I'm going to do the same thing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know for how long I'm going to be going for, but I'm going. Do you want to come with me? And this is when his mindset started to change and he started thinking about maybe this is a possibility for himself. He's seen someone so close to him that he knew that was able to make it happen with the same financial burden that he had growing up, similar situations. And perspective changes when you see people like you doing what you hope to do one day, or they kind of spark your mind and show you what's possible. So fast forward a year from that point, He managed to work while still going to school. And once the summer hit, he traveled to over 8 countries in 2 months. And then the following year, traveled to 8 more countries plus in the span of 2 months. And then fast forward 5 years from that initial point when he started traveling, he's been to over 30 countries in general. He started up a hobby of photography and videography. His portfolio is consisted of photos from the most amazing, beautiful locations on the earth. And he's here today teaching this course in front of you. And he's the founder and CEO of the company here, Live from 631. That story is about myself. But I'm not going to spend too much time on me. This is about teaching you guys. So let's get into the Wanderlust Blueprint. Mastering the 5 essential steps that I feel is necessary to planning a trip. Okay? Now, it's important to master these 5 essential steps so that we leave ourselves with less stress. I constantly, throughout my time traveling, I've gotten DMs, people constantly ask me questions as to why a specific trip didn't go as planned because of different mistakes that they were making. And I understand all of them because I made those mistakes before. I'm guilty of every one of these common travel mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm here to teach you about my mistakes and the mistakes that people often make so that you don't have to make them the same way I did, all right? We want to avoid them. Some of these mistakes involve inadequate planning, poor time management, lack of research, lacking patience. That's a big one. And, just not utilizing your resources. So by the end of this course, you won't have to worry about these anymore. You'll be well equipped to plan your trips and get out there and start enjoying your life. All right. So that first essential step in the travel planning process is setting a budget. You never want to plan or start planning a trip without one. You have to be realistic with yourself and you have to be practical and see what makes sense with your financial situation. That's a number that I can never give you. It's something you and only you will know. And the reason why we want to respect the budget is because one thing's for sure, you never want to get to a country, deplete your funds, and now you're stranded. That's a different type of anxiety you don't want to reach. I can tell you that because it's happened to me before. The first time I ever traveled, I wasn't necessarily stranded. I just realized I was spending a little bit way too much money than I intended. And that was when I went to Switzerland. And I didn't do it. I didn't set a budget and I didn't do enough research. So I didn't realize how expensive Switzerland was. Everything turned out well, but for a few days, I was eating a lot of street food. And that wasn't necessarily the most fun. But factor that budget into every single step throughout the travel planning process. And I'm going to repeat this constantly throughout this entire course. After each step, I'm going to tell you to factor into the budget because we want to respect that budget and definitely not go over it. You rather stay under. And if you stay under, who knows? You can either save money or you can find yourself in a situation where you can travel to another country, right? Number 2, choosing your destination and research. During this portion, you want to start to make a rough draft of your itinerary. And what I mean by rough draft is just throw a bunch of stuff into a piece of paper or a Word doc. When you're trying to choose your destination, during this time, you're going to be seeing different activities to do in that location, different places to eat at. You might be popping up and seeing different modes of transportation, which are best to use. So just throw all this information in one place and we'll get back to it later. But when it comes to choosing a destination, you have to vet yourself. This entire travel planning process is about vetting yourself and maybe whoever it is that you're going to be traveling with. And what I mean by vet yourself is you want to ask yourself, what are your goals and reason for traveling? Some people want to travel for food. Some people want to travel to party, have some type of cultural experience, learn about history, adventure. There's a bunch of different reasons. No reason is right, no reason is wrong. However, you have to be honest with yourself and know exactly what are you traveling for. Once you answer that question, you can possibly cancel out certain locations. If you tell yourself that you don't want to go to any tropical locations, then boom, you can just X out the entire Caribbeans. Okay. Um, there's so many different places in this world to travel to. So much it kind of gets overwhelming. So just create a checklist for yourself. And the first thing you need to do is just ask yourself, what is the goals and reason for traveling? And once you know that, then you will start to figure out how far in advance should you start planning your trip. For each location is different depending on where you're traveling to and from as well. So, for example, me myself, I live in New York, and my first trip ever was traveling to Southeast Asia. That was part of my first trip. I gave myself about 6 to 8 months, bare minimum. I believe it was closer to 8 months of planning my entire trip. The reason being, and we're going to talk about this more when it gets to flights, is it gets easier to save the most amount of money the more time you give yourself. If you have the right um, steps in the travel planning process, which we'll speak about more. Okay. And you have to know that if you're a person who's going to be traveling to multiple countries, those of you who follow me know I country hop a lot. I love to spend 4 days in one country, 3 days in the next, 4 days in the next one, 5 days in the next. I country hop a lot. So it's important to know you have to pace yourself. If you don't pace yourself, you're going to experience an immense amount of burnout, and it's not easy. I'll be honest with you. It's definitely much easier to just pick a location and stay in that one place, but I definitely recommend people to country hop because you get to see so much more, obviously. But if that's not the pace that you want to travel at, that's fine. There's no right way to do it, okay? So just ask yourself, how long do you want to stay at each location? And use your resources. You know, people who are watching this course, you maybe already know where you want to travel to. Me, when I first started traveling, I like to say that I have option paralysis. I just can't pick a location. So I literally just open Google Maps, and wherever my finger landed, I went there. And it was Switzerland, and it was Germany. And I was just like, okay, let me just stay in that region since everywhere is close. And then I went to Italy, and then I went to France. So use your resources. Instagram can be a resource. YouTube can be a resource. You get ideas from other people. You don't have to think too hard. We at Live from 631 on our website, on our social media accounts, we have itineraries for everyone to use. We have, our podcast in which we speak about different locations if you have to hear about anything. So use your resources, and we'll also be adding a PDF in which you can use if you need any help throughout any one of these 5 essential parts of the travel planning process. All right. And like I said, after every single part, you're going to factor into the budget, but not just yet. We choose our destination, and now we're about to get into our research. So that rough draft that I was speaking about earlier, you're just going to add everything to a document, add everything to a piece of paper, and, with places that you can eat at, activities you can do, accommodations that you can stay at, modes of transportation in which you'll have to take. Maybe you have to rent a car. Maybe you have to take a bus. Just note the price next to every single one of those items, okay? Give a ballpark average, and this is going to come in handy later on when we factor into the budget, all right? And also be mindful of currency conversions. There's multiple apps out there that can help you, or just simply just Google. Okay. The currency conversions, for example, I live in the U.S. and our U.S. dollars are much more valuable than uh, Mexican pesos, right? Or so in that situation, I'm gonna get a lot for my money when I go down to Mexico, as opposed to if I travel to London, it won't necessarily um, be the same. At times, it won't be a difference, or my U.S. dollar won't be as valuable as the British pound. Okay, so know the currency conversions before you write everything down to the on this rough draft itinerary, so that you know what price you're sitting at. Okay. During this research process, government entry and exit requirements is extremely important. Why? Because you need to know, first and foremost, if you're traveling abroad, you need a passport. You need a passport, and you need to know the amount of time it takes in order to your passport to arrive once you send out your application. Don't just listen to what the post office says. At different points of the year, this might change depending on volume and the amount of people who are traveling that year. So make sure you get on your government websites, your state websites, and know wherever you're sending out your passport or getting a visa, that you're doing this in a timely manner. And like I said, we give ourselves, if we're traveling abroad, about 6 to 8 months of planning. This is an ample amount of time, so you shouldn't have any issues with this. Another example of government entry and exit requirements, maybe you're going to another country and you need to get certain vaccinations before doing so. I forgot what country it was, but I needed a yellow fever vaccine, and it cost me $300 to get a vaccine. Was I happy about this? Absolutely not. But it's just what is needed. And I was mindful of this before going, so that once I got to that location, I didn't have any issues. Because believe me, a lot of these countries do not care whether you forgot something or not. If you do not meet the requirements, if you do not get a visa, you will not be allowed in. And nobody wants to plan for months just to be denied entry because of your lack of research. Okay? Do not run into that issue. We're on our phone 24/7, just constantly, um, you know, do your research. All right. And do your research on high season versus low season. This is a big thing to take um, into account, because this can change your experience in whatever country it is that you're traveling to. For example, and I want to say this more to my U.S. crowd. Okay, we are extremely ignorant when it comes to how other places on Earth uh, go about living. And what I mean by that is, just because it's summer for us does not mean it's summer somewhere else. And just because it's winter for us does not mean it's winter somewhere else. For example, our summers, when it's summer for us, May, June, July, August, right? And we're traveling to Italy, it's very busy out there. That's their summer as well. That's their high season. August in South Africa is not their high season. That's their low season. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I might get this wrong, I think January, February is South Africa's high season. If you travel to South Africa in August, which I was this past year, it's very cold. It's cold out there. And some of the people who are watching this from the United States may be saying, like, it's cold in August. Yes, because not the globe doesn't operate like it is where you live. That's why it's important to get out there and travel and be aware of these things. We want to learn, right? We want to learn. And again, you want to use all your resources. I'm going to say this again, we have our PDF linked to this travel planning course in which you can download and get helpful tips and, just websites and apps that you can use during each section. And then you can always ask us questions. Contact information is at the bottom of the screen, okay? And at the end, what are you going to do? You're going to factor into the budget. It's the most important thing to do after each and every step of the travel planning process. Make sure you factor into the budget. Now you should be seeing, okay, you're starting to see whether you can travel to this location or not. If you blew the budget already, maybe it's not the best idea to travel to this location now, if that budget was what you're living and dying by, okay? What I like to say is do not, if a place is a little bit too expensive for you right now, do not fret, don't trip about it. You'll travel there one day. I don't like to focus on money too much. Yes, it is a factor, obviously, when it comes to planning a trip. However, if you can't afford it right now, no worries. Plan to go somewhere else, and we'll get there someday, just not right now, all right? Number 3, my favorite portion of the travel planning process is flights. Now, this is my favorite portion. For other people, this is not the case. What I've learned is many people are impatient when it comes to booking flights. And I understand it's very anxiety induced filled seeing prices go up, prices go down. But the reason why I think it's the easiest process is because I relate it to the stock market. In the stock market, prices go up, prices go down. It's the same thing with flights. Flight prices go up, flight prices go down. So, during this process, you are supposed to be consistent, as consistent as possible when it comes to checking for flight prices. What did I say before? We're planning our trip out months and months in advance. You're giving yourself an ample amount of time. You are going to be seeing prices shoot up. You're going to see prices shoot down if you're doing it right. So you have to be consistent. And when I say consistent, you don't have to do the work, because most of these apps, most of these websites, you can put in your email address, your phone number, and it'll contact you when flight prices are the best. It does the work for you. So we let it do that, and we just wait. We keep our money to the side, and we wait to buy. So once it gets time to buy, the people who have the best outcome when it comes to finding cheaper prices are the people who are the most flexible. And what I mean by that is, some people can leave any day throughout the week. You can save yourself a couple $100 flying out on a Tuesday night as opposed to a Wednesday morning, or Sunday afternoon, maybe $100 less than Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so flexibility is the best option, but I know not everyone has this possibility. Some people have jobs, some people have prior engagements, they have kids, so that's 100% understandable. However, just to let you know, if you can make yourself as flexible as possible, it'll be better. And like I said, these websites and these apps do the work for you. You keep that money waiting to the side, and you wait for that green light. And the second it tells you to buy, that's when you get in. Just be mindful to read extremely close. Make sure it is providing you with everything that you need, whether it's a checked bag, a meal, the flight times. You're putting in the right information, because one mistake and that can lead to a lot of problems. Okay. And use your resources. There's people out there like Hopper, Skyscanner, Expedia. Let them do the work. I'm going to say this again. Let them do the work. You just sit back and wait. After that, we factor into the budget. Once again, um, I got 90 more times to say this throughout the course. It's repetitive, it's tiring, but I just want you to I want you to make sure you're good. All right. Number 4 is accommodations. Very, very simple. This is another step of the vetting process when it comes to, planning a trip. And with this here, you have to know yourself and the people who you're traveling with. And once you know that, you can make a easy decision. And what I mean by know yourself and the people that you're traveling with is, are you high maintenance or are you low maintenance? Ask yourself this. Ask the people who you're traveling with. Some people are fine with staying at a hostel. Some people can only stay at resorts. They want that lavish living. Neither answer is right or wrong. Don't let anyone shame you into who you are. I'm extremely low maintenance. I do not need much at all. I need a clean area. I need a clean bed. I don't care how anything else looks. All right? And once you know yourself and the people that you're traveling with, it's easy to make a decision. And if there's two people with two different styles of maintenance, one is high maintenance, one is low maintenance, you may have to compromise a bit. But it's important to know that. And when you're choosing your accommodation, it's important to choose it in terms of location to the airport and to the activities where you'll be spending most of your time. Ideally, you don't want to have an accommodation too far away from the airport in which you'll be flying into, because it'll take a lot of time to get there and a lot of time to get back, and that can lead to some problems, the day that you arrive and the day that you're departing. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The most important thing to keep in mind, though, is your accommodation in relations to where you will be spending most of your time, the activities, the restaurants, different tourist attractions, because you don't want to have a travel location. You don't want to have an accommodation, be an hour and a half away from all the activities in which you'll be spending most of your time at. This will raise issues when it comes to time management, when it comes to just setting out and planning your itinerary for different locations. Okay. So ideally, you want to have it as close as possible to everywhere that you're going to be at. Now, this could raise some concerns with, the price in which you'll pay. So a lot of the accommodations which are in city centers, they are more expensive as opposed to those that are on the outskirt of a city. For example, me staying in France, when I was in Paris, I could not afford all the I couldn't afford the accommodations that were in the city center. So I had to stay on like the outskirts of Paris. To be honest with you, it was not an issue at all. For those of you that have been to Paris, it's like New York City in a sense. People might kill me for saying that, but I just mean that in the sense of you can take trains and subways over there. It's easy to get around. So easy to get around. And from my hotel to the Eiffel Tower, for example, I was able to make a quick 15-minute train ride every single day. So keep that in mind. Once you know, or once you're trying to figure out where to book your accommodations, use all your resources. We got Airbnb, hotels.com, TripAdvisor for information on different resorts or hotels, Expedia, bookings.com. There's too many to list. You'll see in the PDF that we attach here, okay? And then once again, I've said this many, many, many times, we're going to factor into the budget. We're taking steps. So now you should start seeing that you're getting closer to knowing whether your budget is being met or not. If you blew past your budget, you know what steps to take. I told you. If you didn't, let's keep going. And the last and final part of your travel planning process is making that itinerary. This is when, all that, not all your work will pay off. All your work will pay off once you go on that vacation, you enjoy yourself, and you come back, and then you can post about it and flex and all that. But this itinerary process, this is when we go back to number 2, when we were choosing our destination and planning, and doing our research, that rough draft. This is when we're going to, finalize it and assign everything to a specific date and give ourselves a time schedule. But we're not going to be too strict, and I'll explain why. All right. We're going to distinguish our must-dos from our optionals. Some places that you travel to, you know what those are. Those things that you've been dreaming and itching to do for so long. And then there's some other stuff where you're just like, all right, this is cool. Like this will be pretty cool to do, but I'm not too interested in that, right? We're going to make a daily calendar, and we're going to assign those must-dos to specific dates. And you want to pick the stuff that are the closest to each other, and you want to set those around each other, right? Because, like I said, time management is important to us, okay? Making the smartest itinerary is very important to us. So keeping things close by will cause less mishaps from happening, okay? And you want to be flexible and be realistic, because if you want to leave room for opportunity, and over planning is the biggest nightmare that you can have. Do not be the person to create those over ambitious itineraries, okay? It's one of those common travel mistakes I see people constantly make. I've been victim to this as well early on. Now I know. Relax. Plan accordingly. Give yourself time to, go to all my activities, see all my tourist attractions, eat at my favorite restaurants. And once you map out locations that are close to each other, this will become easier, okay? And just keep this list close by you. Make sure that you have to make any prior reservations at any locations that you may need to before going on your trip. Some of you may feel like you do not need to. You'll just get there and do those activities. That's fine as well. That's what I do a lot. And each week or each month leading up to your trip, see if you can refine that itinerary. If any adjustments need to be made. If not, you're good to go. And again, you're going to have those prices next to each activity or restaurant or transportation that you have to take. And then now you should have more of a concrete idea in which you'll know how much this trip will cost. Of course, we can't account for unexpected expenses, but you should have more of an idea. And that's exactly what we want. All right. And then after that, guess what we're going to do? I've said this thousands of times, many of times. We're going to factor into the budget. I don't want you going broke. I don't want you stranded out in whatever country it is, begging for $1. We want you to enjoy yourselves. We want you to have the best travel experiences possible, experience different cultures. We want you to have the everything just planned out perfectly for you to enjoy yourself, okay? Once you're done with that, the most satisfying part, the one we all love, is packing our bags. I'm joking when I say that. Nobody likes packing a bag. But when you know what you're packing your bags for, it becomes a little bit easier. And then we get on that flight. From there, we enjoy the fruits of our labor, literally and figuratively. This is when all of that planning pays off. This is when, the hours that you probably put your blood, sweat, and tears in at work begins to pay off and you enjoy yourself. And before we go, I just want to leave you with this incredible quote by a man that I am very appreciative of, someone that left a big impact on my life and is the reason why I'm here teaching this course and hope to leave a big impact on other people as well. Anthony Bourdain once said that travel isn't just about fancy resorts or being a tourist. It's about making connections, being open to new experiences, and immersing yourself in the culture and people you encounter. So, with that being said, I thank you again. Most people do not take that first and necessary step into planning uh, a trip. People don't feel comfortable getting out of their comfort zone. So, you need to applaud yourself on educating yourself. And I know that a big percentage of you will not go further than this course, and you'll just leave it at that. I pray and I hope that this isn't you watching this. I hope that whoever it is that is watching this takes that next leap, that next step to get out there, travel the world. Don't go somewhere where you may not feel comfortable. Speak to people in which you never spoke to before. Eat something new. This is how you get the full experience of life. Thank you.